Alrighty, it's 10 o'clock and time for another edition of Long's Coffee Break. I am Weston Broberg, with sales engineer out of Littleton, Colorado, and I'm here with Jason Gagan from LF Systems, and he's here to talk about commercial laundry rooms. Go
Great.
ahead and
Yeah,
take it
thanks.
away, Jason.
Thanks, Weston. Yeah, I appreciate the time. Quick overview of who we are, what we do. So RM Manifold is our parent company. We're a pressure-based controls manufacturer out of Fort Worth, Texas. We go to market under 3 brands. US Draft Co. focuses primarily on draft controls for fuel-fired appliances, boilers, water heaters, pool heaters, unit heaters, anything that needs draft assistance. We can assist you with that. KW Draft is our more of our residential line for fireplaces, commercial pizza ovens, anything specialty products that need some venting assistance. And then the brand we're going to talk about today, LF Systems, focuses on multi-story exhaust, stairwell and elevator pressurization controls, and the topic for today is commercial laundry rooms. So there are 2 types of dryers, type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is your residential dryer, single family use, something you probably have in your home. Type 2 dryers are more commercial grade or multi dryers where you're going to have multiple people using that. Those could be coin operated. Those could be regular dryers that multi-families use. So we're going to focus on type 2 dryers today. Again, those are for public use. So these are going to be laundromats, fitness centers, dormitories, hospitals, hotels, anywhere there's multiple people using these dryers. Couple things when installing your dryers, they must be exhausted in accordance to the manufacturer's recommendations. Now, typically that manufacturer is going to limit you to anywhere from 15 to 35 feet, depending on the manufacturer. Keep in mind, type 2 dryers typically run between a 0.1 and a 0.5 inch positive pressure at the outlet. But most dryers, when you look at their data sheets and they tell you the CFM rating of that dryer, that's going to be based on an unloaded condition with no pipe. So if you just turn the dryer on, no clothes in it, no pipe connected to the exhaust, you're going to get about 200 CFM in this instance. Once you load it with clothes, once you start adding on pipe, that can decrease it by as much as half. But again, you're now introducing pressure drop, so you have to take that into account. As you can see here, this is a residential chart showing that the max length is about 35 feet, which gets you about 100 CFM. A couple of code concerns to think about when doing commercial laundry exhaust. First off, you can't have anything in the airstream. First note being in 504.2 says you can't have fire dampers or fire smoke dampers when penetrating a firewall with dryer exhaust. Now, which means you now have to use some kind of fire rated exhaust shaft to get through that rating. But again, a fire smoke damper can be a catch point for lint. Lint can catch on fire, and that would be bad. Second thing you have to worry about is cleanouts. So code says every vertical rise, you should have a cleanout access to make sure that any lint drops out of the airstream can be cleaned out at the base. I like to actually see cleanouts at every turn. Reason being is, again, if there's a low velocity point in that system, it will catch in those corners. So you want to be able to access that as you can. 504.4 says screens should not be in the duct termination. So using a standard exhaust fan, specifically a termination style fan, most of them are going to have some kind of a screen or finger guard. Unfortunately, that, again, something in the airstream that could catch lint. And unfortunately, the lint screen or the bird screen, excuse me, is usually part of the listing of that fan. So by removing that screen, you're now removing the listing. And then finally, screws, you can't have anything in the ductwork. So you can't use zip screws on your sheet metal. You have to have a smooth interior finish. If you do use screws, you have to have some kind of a protective shield plate installed on those. Very difficult to install, very difficult to verify. So typically use some kind of a fit together system or a flange type system to eliminate that. The other thing is on commercial dryer systems, you cannot use a fan with a motor in the airstream. The fan that you see here is a little residential booster fan, a DEDPV. And it does have that motor in the airstream. That is acceptable for single use residential dryers, but it is not acceptable for commercial applications. So we talk about our laundry exhaust system real quick. This is where you're going to take, instead of doing individual dryer exhaust, where you take this straight out the wall or up and out the wall, if you don't have that wall access, or if you just don't want to have that many penetrations on your exterior wall, you can common duct, in this instance 3 dryers, into a common horizontal through an inline fan up to the roof, gooseneck down. Again, no bird screens, just gooseneck that down to make sure, prevent any weather from intruding. You have an inline fan with a disconnect, pressure controller reading pressure in that duct. We also have an inline lint collector we'll talk about here in just a second. But basically, as dryers turn on, there's a current sensing relay that will turn that controller on, starts up the fan, and just maintains that pressure in this common ductwork. So as dryers turn on and off, that pressure is going to change and that fan is going to modulate to maintain that set point. Typically a slight negative, 0.05 to 0.08 negative, that allows the dryers to continue to run at that slight positive at the outlet. A couple things to think about during a common exhaust system. Here again, you see that clean out right before the vertical. Sometimes you'll see a lateral T or a boot T with a cap on the bottom. That's acceptable as well. Make sure that connector stays the outlet diameter. So if you have an 8-inch outlet, for instance, make sure that's 8-inch all the way up into your common. Most connectors, you want to maintain a maximum of 15 feet because most commercial dryers have that limitation of 15 feet. And then that connector into the common, we call these a lateral T, but it's a 45-degree T. I always like to say, exhaust gases are stupid. They do where you go. So if you put them into a boot or into a straight T, those gases are going to hit that sidewall, create some turbulence, create excess back pressure. So we want to make sure that those gases just make that nice merge into that common and continue on their way. We're going to size this common for about no more than 1/10 of an inch pressure drop. That way we can maintain that pressure throughout the common at all times. Again, cleanouts provided as required by code. And the fan can be located anywhere downstream of the last dryer. So if you want to put it in line, or if you want to put it up on the roof even, it is just make sure the fan is outdoor rated, which again, the DEF from LF Systems is. So we provide a removable access panel to maintain remove any lint or any particles that might get into that fan housing. We use an EC motor up to 1 horse. So direct speed control from the controller to the motor varies that speed from 10% all the way up to 100%. Anything larger than that, we're going to use a standard 3-phase motor off the shelf with a VFD. This fan goes with 7,500 CFM. It is listed to 378 and 705 for indoor-outdoor applications. Galvanized housing along with available insulation panels. So in certain instances where we have to insulate this to prevent any condensation, that is available. And then the impeller is either backward inclined or backward curved, depending on the size. So we can get any lint that does get into that fan, it's thrown off the wheel. We're not worrying about an imbalance. Our pressure controller, our L150, again, is a constant pressure controller, reads across 0. As I mentioned, our set point is going to be a very slight negative. So anytime dryers turn on, that pressure is going to rise, and typically you'll see a spike above neutral. So we want to be able to see that, react to that very quickly. Most controllers out there are negative only pressure controls. You want to make sure you have that true bidirectional reading. The other thing that allows is a high and low pressure safety. First thing that happens when a motor goes bad is you're going to see that as a high pressure alarm. So we want to make sure we have that. Controller is factory programmed with a bunch of defaults, but if there's any need to change the ramp speed, the filter of the transducer is all field adjustable. And Modbus is standard on all our manifold controls. Again, just to show you a pressure range idea, kind of in a graphic. So this is showing your typical set point on a laundry system. Having that negative only pressure control really limits you on what you can see above your set point. With that true bidirectional, we're able to see that change in pressure and react to it very quickly, typically 50 to 60% faster. The inline lint filter we talked about was what we call our inline lint collector, ILC. It's a stainless steel housing with a 400 micron filter bag. As you can see here, it's got toolless clamps. Pop the 2 clamps, pull that worm clamp down, empty the bag, put it back on. Takes about 3 to 5 minutes to empty it out. up to 4,800 CFM. So if you're familiar with laundry exhaust, you can get a very small lint filter for your individual dryers, fairly inexpensive. And then you can get large centrifugal things that we'll talk about here in a second. There wasn't a really good option for that middle ground, so we created the ILC for those small to medium projects. And we can provide an optional pressure switch to go across the inlet and outlet to verify or to alarm or to alert the operators when the bag is full. I did mention the high capacity filters. We work with a company called Energetics, where the velocity drops in such a way that the lint falls out of the airstream up to 10,000 CFM. A lot of different great options for this. So if you do get into high capacity systems, we do have that as an option. Real quick, talk about supply air. So anything you exhaust, you have to make up. Code gives you some provisions for what that is. And there's two options typically used for makeup air on dryers. One is with louvers. They can be questionably decorative, we'll say. Sometimes most of the time they're undersized. And if they are properly sized, they typically cake up with dirt and grit and grime. So we offer what we call our supply air system. Put a fan in the space, ducted to the outside, pressure sensor in the room with a sensor reference outside. We just modulate that fan to maintain neutral. So as dryers turn on, take air from the space, we dump that right back in. Couple of advantages. One, we're only going to provide the air that's required rather than just having a big hole in the wall. I know in Colorado and Utah and Wyoming that could be a concern in the wintertime, having a big hole in the wall. Sizing. So if architectural or space is a concern, if you were to do 5 200 CFM dryers, you probably would need a 20 by 20 louver, whereas we would only need a 12-inch round pipe. And then cost. If you're doing a standalone system, this system does cost a little bit more than your dampers and your louvers and dampers. But if you're already doing an exhaust system, we can actually combine the two systems into one control. And that control is typically 40 to 50% of the cost of the system. So if we're just adding a fan and a sensor, this can now become a very cost competitive option for you. Let's recap those code concerns we talked about. Again, no bird screens. No motor in the airstream. The DEF covers both of those. We want to make sure we have no obstructions in the ductwork. We have partnered with a couple of manufacturers to provide what we call our laundry duct system. This is a clamp together style system. Again, no tools required. But the two ends together, wrap the clamp around it. It is now a seamless interior finish. So again, that nice smooth finish that you're required to have. It also gives you the secondary benefit of having a clean out access at every joint. Pop the two clamps, pull the pipe out, you now have access to that system. Up to 36-inch diameter and 18 to 22 gauge depending on the diameter. Last thing we want to talk about is our sizings. So easiest way for us to help is if you give us a line drawing of what you're trying to accomplish. Tell us you have 3 dryers, 800 CFM a piece. Send that in a sketch drawing going over 10 feet, up 10 feet. Our 3 application engineers will run the reports, send you back this beautiful calculation report to show you the size of the duct as well as the fan controls, accessories that you're going to need on that system. That way, if there's any questions about what you need, moving on in the future, you have that report for reference. With that, I appreciate your time today. If you have any questions, you can contact us at one of the means on the screen here, or just contact your long salesperson for sizings, quotes, etc. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Weston. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate it. And now to everybody's favorite part, the giveaway. Our winner this week is reach out to your long sales engineer and he will let you choose your prize. Next week, we will have Josh Likes with Yaskawa discussing VFD packages. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next week.